Hey friends, it's Anna. Today's video is an exciting one. I'm spilling all my secrets because we're doing a flip through of my bullet journal after the pen, aka after I've written all over it, used it, lived in it for the past 6 months. So you guys are going to get to see how I actually use my journal day to day, week to week. I used this caramel color journal from Shop Amanda Rach Lee. I was really impressed with the quality of the journal, and as you'll see, I definitely put the pages through some tests. These first few pages are general setup pages. I put in every journal, like a grid spacing spread and key. I actually converted my grid spacing page into a bookmark for the first time for my second journal for 2023, so I'll link that setup video if you're interested in seeing my bookmark version of this. As you can see, I didn't end up using my index. Because I spend so much time creating this journal, I know where everything is. And also, it's just fun to flip through the pages like this when you're looking for something, so you can get a glance at all your other spreads. Okay, this is probably confusing because this video is titled 2023 Bullet Journal Flip Through, but I actually used this journal for just a few months in 2021 and then came back to it at the start of 2023, so no one has actually ever seen these next spreads before. During that break from journaling, I was instead using some printables that were formatted like bullet journal weeklies. It was a crazy period in my life, so I just wanted to be using some already set up pages. And for the part of 2021 that I did journal, you can tell I went for an incredibly minimal design, and I reused the same design each month, just alternating colors. Some weeks I did a habit tracker, some weeks I didn't. If you're intimidated by bullet journaling at all, I would say maybe try starting out with something like this that's very simple. Or even if you just don't need a lot of space for your spreads or don't prefer to spend a lot of time on artistic design, these spreads still worked wonderfully and they still look good. I did really miss journaling in 2022 during that break, so I was so happy to come back to it in 2023. I think for a lot of us, bullet journaling is about more than just the planner system. It's also a chance to build art and creativity into our routine. As you can tell, I kept this same black and gold star theme, which I also used in my second journal of the year because I'm still so in love with it. This is my year at a glance spread where I track future trips, appointments, events, things like that. I added this key at the bottom here later on because I wanted to easily see on the calendar when I'll be out of town, when holidays are, or when there's a big event. A lot of the time it takes using a spread for a bit and then you come up with little tweaks to make it better. And these are my 2023 goals, which I separated into 4 life domains of faith, health, personal, and professional. And for any of these goals that are trackable, I made these little custom trackers over here on the right page. I really like this system for annual goals because I think it's so easy to make New Year's resolutions that we forget about by February. But since I made these goals specific and measurable and I'm still actively tracking each one, I think it gives me a greater chance at actually achieving them. Here's my 2023 reading log, which now I don't really need because I just started a reading journal last month, even though it's the middle of the year. But I couldn't wait until 2024. I just got the biggest urge to start a reading journal. So if you want to see my reading journal setup, I'll link that as well. I will probably continue filling this out for the rest of the year though, just so that it's not incomplete, which would really bother the perfectionist in me. This is my cleaning schedule. Please don't look too close because I haven't done the best at doing these tasks as often as I want to, but I've come to realize that this is more of an ideal, and if a task doesn't get done as often as the chart says, that's okay. I think in bullet journaling, where we tend to do a lot of trackers and goals and planning, it's easy to get caught up in really ambitious goals, and it's something I'm continually working on to make sure my goals are also realistic and give myself grace when I get behind schedule. I think bullet journaling is always this balance between wanting to be organized but not stressing myself out unnecessarily. This is my plant care tracker and wish list, and now we're getting into my monthly setups. But first we have my first quarterly spread of 2023. Quarterly spreads are not that common in bullet journals, but I feel like there are definitely goals and tasks that fit better for a quarterly time period rather than a monthly or annual period. That being said, I actually don't use my quarterly spread as often as I plan to. I don't know if it's because I need to try a different setup or if I'm just not in the habit of using one because this is the first year I've tried quarterly spreads. I still plan on having them for the remainder of the year and trying to be better about using them. As you can see, my first theme of the year was snow-covered evergreen trees. Looking back, this is probably my least favorite theme of the whole year. Not that I hate it, but I think there is much better artwork to come. I remember this week I was short on time, so I just used stickers instead of drawing for this weekly. February was my anatomical heart theme, and the first month I started using this spread. This gives me a place to plan out my month besides just what events are on my calendar. And on the right page, it also gives me a place to reflect on the month. Here I wrote specific prompts, what went well, what didn't go well, what you want to do better, and sometimes I just free write whatever I feel will help me reflect the best in that moment. This mood tracker is supposed to be a drawing of a blood vessel, and I guess if you're looking for it, it looks like a blood vessel, but at first glance, it just looks like a purple tree branch to me. Sometimes your artistic vision just doesn't come through. Here's an example of a shorter weekly spread. This week, I must have felt that I just didn't need as much space. This is my normal weekly setup with a faux Dutch door that allows me to always see my rolling weekly task list on this last column. On to March, which was my mushroom theme. This might be my favorite theme of the whole journal, but April and June come close, so we'll see when we get to those. Let me know what your favorite theme is in the comments because I'd love to hear y'all's opinions as well. You might have noticed that sometimes in my habit trackers, I color in certain chunks, and I do that when either I'm out of town or for some reason go a while without filling in my trackers, even if it's just because I'm having a hectic week. And instead of backtracking the habits, I like to just color in that area and start fresh when I'm ready. It took me a while to be okay with that. I used to hate getting behind on trackers or leaving things incomplete in my journal, but I've learned that it's not worth the stress or time for me to do a lot of backtracking. Also, this is one of my favorite mood trackers. Okay, here's an example of where I reused a weekly spread, which is a great hack, I think. Sometimes I just don't use a lot of space in my journal, or I don't even write anything at all, and when I get to the end of the week and there's still a lot of space left on my weekly, I just reuse those pages instead of creating a whole other weekly spread. So you can see I just drew a line beneath where I had already written, stamped new dates, and I didn't even need to set up a new weekly. And I probably just used the same rolling weekly and maybe added onto it. Here's a random half of a sunflower painting, which is some foreshadowing for my June theme. And here's my spring bucket list that I did this year. I had a lot of fun with this group of spreads, and they're all gouache paintings, so like I mentioned earlier, I was really testing the boundaries of these pages. So this spring, I came up with a list of books, movies, TV shows, and activities that I wanted to do during the season to fully embrace the spring vibes. I thought my bullet journal was the perfect place to write my list and make it into some pretty spreads. That is one of my favorite things about bullet journaling. It can be more than just monthly calendars and weekly planners if you want it to be. You can draw or write or track anything you're passionate about. Here's the page with spring activities. I did do a good amount of the bucket list overall. I wasn't necessarily trying to complete all of it, but it was a fun guide. On to the second quarter of the year. I changed the setup slightly by scrapping intentions because I do that every month already and giving myself more room for goals. For this quarter, I specifically had this box pertain to my annual goals. You can see I divided it into the 4 life domains that my annual goals are in. And my rolling quarterly was more for any tasks that I wanted to get done sometime in April through June. Again, I didn't do the best of using or referencing this spread, so we'll see if I can better utilize these quarterly pages in the second half of the year. This is one of my other favorite artistic themes of the journal, these abstract flower drawings with colorful shapes in the background. I think it looks beautiful, and also I remember this one was really simple and quick to draw too. Here's another example of graying out sections on the habit trackers, or I guess pinking out technically. And up here you can see I actually wrote why, so I was traveling this week and I was sick this week, and that's why I wasn't keeping up with the trackers. This is also the month that I switched to using the 1 line a day method for my mood trackers. Before, I had been doing this system, which I see most commonly online, of using colors to represent different moods. But that one is hard when there's often more than one mood you feel each day. So I do like that in this system I have a full line to write whatever I want for each day, multiple moods or any context for why I felt that way. And you'll see in June how I try to add some color to this system as well. On to my weeklies, and this is when one of my friends gave me the idea to match the art in these 2 columns, which was an awesome idea that I started incorporating from here on out. May's theme was an idea that I've had for quite some time. This theme was a floral spin on the chemical structures of some popular molecules like our favorite neurotransmitters, serotonin and dopamine. This was such a fun throwback to my chemistry classes in college, and there is something so beautiful to me about these structures drawn with florals. Here's an example of when I sometimes time block on my daily spreads. As you've seen, I usually use my journal for bulleted tasks, and I do usually organize those tasks in some way, like listing them in the order I plan to do them, or over here you can see I separated these out into work and personal. But one of the things I love about having a whole column for each day is I have space to create a specific schedule if I need it. And of course I had to draw caffeine, which is my favorite molecule because coffee and tea are 2 of my favorite things. I think this is my only coffee stain in the whole journal, which is honestly quite an accomplishment. I just wish it had been above a caffeine molecule. I guess that would have been too perfect. And here's another time when I use these pages for 2 weeklies. On to the last month of the journal, June, with my sunflower theme, another one of my favorites. This theme I also used gouache paint, and the pages held up marvelously. This was the mood tracker where I still used the line a day system, but also added a color key at the bottom for some basic common moods. And I think this worked out really well because it has all the advantages of the coloring system, which is that you can glance at the page and easily see which moods you were feeling most often and any patterns. But if you want more context and info, you can also actually read through each line. At this point, I was running out of pages in my journal, so I needed to use some condensed weeklies. And the last half of June was really busy, so I did a few very minimal setups as well. And we have reached the end of this journal. I hope you enjoyed that flip through, got some interesting insights on how someone else uses their journal. If you enjoyed this video, I would so much appreciate a thumbs up, and please feel free to subscribe to follow along with me in my second journal of the year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in my next video.